ma'am, pwede daw ba mag-sit-in? Sabi ko, sige bro, mag-sit-in ka sa study nila.
One of the main problems is that students don't address the entire question, and you can't get over a 5 if you don't address all the question for task response.
On the day, when you get your question, read it thoroughly. Examine it, dissect it. What is it it's asking you to do? And it will probably ask you to do minimum 2 things, maximum 4 things. Make sure you cover all the elements of the question. Timing is essential. You are only given 40 minutes, roughly, for writing task 2. Writing task 1 is 20 minutes. Plan your work. Take the time, take at least 2 to 3 minutes to plan your work before you actually start writing. Also, you can do the math. Writing task 1, you are asked to write 150 words. If you break 150 words down into 4 paragraphs, that's 35 words per paragraph. General rule of thumb is there are 10 words per sentence. So if you're writing a 3-sentence paragraph, that's 30 words. If you need to write 50 words in 1 paragraph, that's 5 sentences. So you can block it. My first paragraph is going to be 3 to 4 sentences. My last paragraph is going to be 2 to 3 sentences. So you can block it out. See it first before you write it. Make sure that each paragraph has a topic sentence. It jumps out at the reader. When they read your piece of writing, if it has a strong topic sentence, it jumps out. It sends a message that you know exactly what it is you're writing about, and also that it helps you focus on that paragraph. 1 topic sentence, 1 paragraph, 3 supporting sentences based on that topic sentence. Refrain from repeating the same word over and over again. There are many synonyms for the same word. Use them.
If you use increase once, use go up, or then use rise, or decrease, go down, fall. Try not to repeat vocabulary.
The word for business or businesses, okay? Then you can talk about companies, corporations. Ask yourself, is the word I want to substitute, is it a positive or negative word? If it's a positive word, replace it with a positive word. If it's a negative word, replace it with a negative word. You don't necessarily have to have a broad range of vocabulary to score high on the writing test. As long as you have the ability to paraphrase. So even if you don't know the specific word, you can describe that meaning of that word. When you sit down, and if you don't take it seriously on the day, even if you're a native speaker, you probably won't do as well as you thought you would. So you have to go in with a mindset that this is an exam, and I have to meet the criteria of that exam. Know what the expectation is, and meet that expectation as best as you can. And it's not out of reach for anybody, really. But half the battle is knowing what the expectation is. Move the question. Exactly. Repeat the question.
Oh, I'd definitely walk to work if I didn't have to walk round cars parked on the pavement and so on. Or I'd use a bike. It would be so much easier to find alternatives if we weren't overrun with cars.
Actually, I think the reason public transport is so bad is that everyone's using their cars. If people used their cars less, there'd be fewer cars on the road. The buses would get around quicker, and there would be more of them. The whole system would improve.
I live in the city centre. If cars were banned, would that mean I'd have to give up my car? I've just as much right to use a car as anyone else. Why should I be discriminated against just because I happen to live here?
I'd hate to have to go shopping using public transport. Lugging heavy shopping bags onto an overcrowded bus and then having to hang on to them while I stand for an hour. Much easier to pop things into the boot of the car. So much more convenient, not to mention comfortable.
It's really pretty dangerous walking or cycling around here. Just yesterday I was nearly knocked down crossing the street to the baker's.
It's the noise that really gets me down. I dream of moving out to the peace and quiet of the countryside, but I can't afford to, and besides, I work here. But I've read that noise pollution causes all sorts of psychological problems for people living in cities.
Many of my customers come into the centre by car. If cars were banned, my business would suffer terribly. Starting to see more and more kids arriving at this school wearing breathing masks to protect them from the traffic fumes. Pollution causes so many health problems. I mean, just take asthma for example. It's at record levels.
When I think what cities were like before the arrival of cars, all those beautiful buildings and monuments, now you can hardly see them because of all the cars parked in front of them.
You know, it's estimated that about 30% of cars driving around most city centres are just looking for somewhere to park. It's a vicious circle where traffic congestion causes more congestion.
You see, most of our city centres were never designed for all this traffic. Narrow streets, no parking facilities. They were built when people still expected just to walk from A to B, or jump on their horse.
You should see what's happening to the cathedral in my city. It's falling down after 750 years. Not only are the traffic fumes eating into the limestone, but the vibrations from passing traffic are damaging its foundations too. It's so sad.
All the money tourists spend means that businesses grow, and I don't just mean hotels and restaurants. A lot of small businesses owned by locals do really well as a result of all the visitors.
All this uncontrolled building leads to the destruction of the environment. Roads cut through beautiful countryside or virgin forests. Hundreds of ugly hotels lining the beaches, and golf courses for rich foreigners guzzling scarce water resources. It's a terrible waste.
In my experience, only a few tourists really know how to respect the locals and their beliefs and way of life. And the younger ones tend to dress inappropriately and behave badly.
Lots of places would be backwaters if it wasn't for tourism. Areas that used to be virtually cut off from the outside world have benefited from new roads, airports, and better train and bus services.
For one thing, there were far more options than in the past. 20 or 30 years ago, people here could only earn a living from fishing and agriculture, but nowadays you can get a regular wage working regular hours.
The trouble is that most employment in the tourist industry is low-level menial work. Things like working as a waiter or waitress in a restaurant or as a hotel cleaner. The wages are usually pretty low, and when the holiday season is over, we all have to go on the dole.
Tourism opens up the country to foreigners. Local people meet outsiders and they get new ideas. That can be good for a country's development. Likewise, tourists return home having learnt something about the host country and its culture.
Tourists usually pay for their holidays in their country of origin, and the travel companies are often foreign businesses, so not very much of the money the tourists pay for their holidays actually reaches the country they visit.
Birthday present for his daughter, and an administration officer at a zoo. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 8. You will hear part of a lecture given to students starting a geology course. First you
for these 11 to 14 minutes, you really should try to show off and showcase your English as much as you can. Certainly give an answer, and if in a complete sentence, and if you can, give a reason why, if that is appropriate. So, what are your favourite hobbies? I enjoy so-and-so because I like getting outdoors and walking in the open fresh air. Try to give a reason why. Try to give some sort of support to your answer.
If you find yourself using the same vocabulary again and again and again, you have to expand that vocabulary. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is to use different vocabulary. So a 30-minute clip recorded on a digital recorder like this of a conversation with a friend. Go to a thesaurus, look up other words, look at other vocabulary, and try to incorporate it into your daily language. That would be something to do a couple of weeks beforehand.
That 1 minute is crucial. It really is. You should use that 1 minute, write down keywords. I think some examiners feedback that candidates try to write down sentences. You cannot write down more than several, half a dozen, maybe a dozen sentences at the most, and this will perhaps keep you going for 30 seconds. You simply do not have time to write down full sentences. Any of the topics for the long term, you are talking about something in the past. And many students, sometimes they will make mistakes between the tense selection. So they may be talking, for example, if you have a task, tell me what you did last weekend. Well, obviously, this 2-minute long turn, the majority of the information will be in the past. So the majority of your tenses should be past tenses. Some candidates think that they try to predict a lot of the questions, and sometimes you can in part 1, so they work out their answer, memorise it, and then reel it off. Although you may have answered 3 questions in part 1 well, you have the rest of part 1, part 2 and part 3. And if the quality and standard of your English falls, then the examiner will know you've memorised the answer. And if he detects for 1 second you've memorised an answer, he will ignore it.
Okay, let's go on now to talk about art in everyday life. What kind of decoration do you like on your walls?
Well, I have a reproduction of Dali painting because it's one of my favorite painters. I just love the way he the shapes on his pictures depends on from what position you look at the picture. You can see a vase of fruit, for example. You can see someone's face, and it's very nice because you can look at the painting for hours and discover some small nice details you haven't realized it existed on this painting from the first glance.
So what's your opinion of modern art?
I'm not that much involved in this matter, so it's hard to me.
What kinds of activities do people of your age do with their families?
Sorry, the question.
What kinds of activities do people of your age do with their families?
What, in vacations?
Perhaps.
So what do you think makes an event newsworthy?
Makes an event newsworthy. I didn't really understand this question.
Why are some things on the news, whereas other things are not?
Do you think there have been any changes in cities over the last 20 years?
The way of living?
Yeah, the way of living, any other changes?
What might be the reasons for choosing radio, TV, newspapers, or the internet as a source of news?
What might be the... Sorry, will you please repeat it?
Why might somebody choose radio, TV, newspapers, or the internet as their source of news?
Do you believe positive thinking can cure illness?
Sorry?
Do you think positive thinking can cure illness?
Yeah, definitely.
Because why do you think that?
If you are not sick, if you feel psychologically bad, it affects you a lot.
In what ways do you think, like what destinations do people go to?
What do you mean?
Will they go to the same places?
I think yes.
So what's your opinion generally of modern art?
I don't really understand it. I'm more up to traditional paysages, for example. Modern art like cubism. I don't understand it. I wouldn't like to have these paintings at my house. Or maybe the roads for pedestrians be better.
I'd like you to talk about a friend who has played a big part in your life. You should talk about him or her for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you will have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say. You can make some notes if you wish. Okay, you can start talking now. Okay, that's the maximum time allowed. Now, I am going to ask you a few questions. I'd like you to talk about a friend who has played a big part in your life. You should talk about him or her for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you will have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say. You can make some notes if you wish.